Hello everyone, welcome back. And in today's video, we are going to discuss 24 critical French defense exchange variation system. And this video is going to be extremely critical for all the French players because French defense exchange system is occurred on the board by playing the move e4, e6, d4, d5, takes. And this particular position is considered as the French defense exchange variation system. And it is also considered as a very drawish system. So if you are playing with the black pieces or with the white pieces, I would say, it is extremely hard for you to make a win in this particular position. So it is going to be extremely critical video for every French player as well as for every non-chess player, because it eventually is going to help you to increase your chess knowledge. And after watching the video, you are going to be extremely master the French defense exchange variation system. So it's going to be extremely critical. So now let's quickly check it out. So coming to the first variation, after happening the French exchange variation, here first white plays the move bishop to f4. And the idea is to develop on the queen side and try to castle long. We are going to simply develop up knight on f6, knight to c3, and now bishop to d6. Our idea is pretty simple. We develop on the king side and we want to castle short. Point to d2, short castle. And here our idea is to play rook e8 check. So white is kind of forced to do a long castle. And here we play the move a5. And our idea is to expand on the queen side and try to attack the white king. And black is not slower than white here, as we can start pushing the pawns already by playing the move a5, b5. So after a5, white plays the move c3 and f3. And white side is also play the move g4, h4, playing on the king side. We play the move c6. Our idea is to play b5. We have the move g4, b5, h4, a4, h5, b4, and the knight move. And here we are going to play the move knight to a6 with the idea of pushing the b pawn and rerouting the knight from the a6 square towards an attacking outpost, perhaps to maybe on b5 can be an outpost, even e6 can be an outpost. And black seems somewhat ahead in the race, though the position remains very complex. White's g4 pawn push can be met by playing the move knight to e8. So there is nothing to worry about. Okay, so this is a very complex position and it's a very stable position for black. Our idea is to push the pawn to b5, b6, b3 maybe, reroute the knight from the a6 to somewhat like b5 maybe. And the moment white pushes the pawn to g5, we are going to put our knight to e8. So this was the first variation. So now let's move on to the second variation. So now coming on to the second variation, we have e4, e6, we have the French exchange. And here white plays the move, the most natural move, bishop to d3. You can even play knight f3 or bishop d3. Both are considered as the same move, fine natural move. After bishop d3, we are going to play the move c5. Pawn takes, bishop takes, knight f3, knight f6, and it's a fine position now. And the very critical part here is after e d5, if white plays the move knight f3, we do not push the pawn to c5, but we first develop our knight. Basically, a knight development is always met with knight development, and the moment white develops his bishop, then is the only moment we are going to push our c pawn. And after c5, after takes, we again have a transposition and there is nothing to worry about. So this was the second variation. So now let's move on to the third variation. So coming on to the third variation, after French exchange, what if white plays the move c4 himself? After playing the move c4, we are going to develop our knight first, knight to c3. And here we are going to play the move bishop to b4. So as long as we can play the move bishop to b4 in one go, there is nothing white can do about it. White is not having an advantage really. So after bishop b4, bishop to d3, short castle, knight to e2, because our idea is already to play rook e8 check. So knight e2, pawn takes, bishop takes, and here you will notice how white is having an isolated queen pawn. Knight d7, short castle, knight b6, hitting the bishop, bishop d3, rook e8, bishop g5, h6, bishop h4, and here we have c6. And the idea for black in this particular position here is, first of all, white is having a long-term weakness on d4 as it's an isolated queen pawn. And second, black's idea to continue the game is to play the move bishop e7, knight h5, trading off the dark square bishop. And third, black's idea is also to play the move bishop e6 followed by bishop c4, trading off the light square bishop, because bishop on d3 is pretty nice for white. So our idea is to trade off the light square bishop. So this is the third variation in the French defense exchange variation. So now let's move on to the fourth variation. So now coming on to the fourth variation, white plays the move c4 on the fourth move. We play the move knight to f6, knight c3, bishop b4. We have already discussed this. Bishop d3, short castle, knight e2, takes, knight to d7, short castle, knight b6. And in the previous version, white played the move bishop d3. But here, what if white puts the bishop onto b3 and claims that the bishop is pretty healthier on b3? After bishop b3, we are still going to play the move c6, bishop g5, rook e8, and here after queen d3, we can also play the move bishop e7, knight h5, trying to trade off the bishop. But there is a even better way to do it by playing the move rook e8, followed by queen d3. The idea is pretty simple for white. White wants to develop the rook to e1 and try to get all his pieces into the game. So after queen d3, we are going to play the move bishop e6. That's the logic of playing rook e8. The idea is to play bishop e6 and trade off the light square bishop. And here, after knight e4, white trying to make the things more complicated, here we can simply play the move bishop to e7, simply protecting the knight here. There's nothing white can do here. After bishop takes, we can simply take on e4 now, not taking the bishop, and eventually it is all going to get simplified without any complication, because here we are already hitting two pieces. So after, for example, bishop takes, we can take with the rook or even with the queen. I would definitely prefer with a rook. And after queen takes, knight, rook takes, queen d3, you can notice how white is having a permanent weakness on d4, and black can simply attack that weakness, and black is already having an edge in the position. So this was the fourth diagram. So now let's move on to the fifth variation. So now coming on to the fifth variation, on the move number 4, white plays the move knight to f3. We play the move knight f6, and here white plays the move c4, not playing the move anything like bishop d3. After playing the move c4, we are simply going to give bishop to b4 check. You must play bishop to b4 in one go, not playing like bishop d6 or bishop d4 check, but to play the bishop to b4 check in one go. And here after bishop b4 check, you can study the lines where we get this position with colors reversed, and white can eventually equalize, but he really isn't the one having the advantage. And it's a pretty comfortable position for black, because we can take on the c4 in the future, and eventually white is having a long-term weakness as an isolated queen pawn, and black is very comfortable. So this was the fifth variation. So now let's move on to the sixth variation. So coming down to the sixth variation, here white plays the move knight f3. We play the move knight f6, knight to c3. And now knight to c3 looks a bit weird. There is nothing to worry about if you don't know. Whoever plays the whenever variation, all those who know that after knight c3, we play the move bishop to b4. So basically, a good thing here is our bishop is not committed onto b4. So at the place of developing the bishop to b4, we can simply develop our bishop to d6 and having a good position. Because capturing the knight on c3 doesn't really help for black, because after b takes, once white puts the bishop on a3, it is going to be simply a monster. So we are going to simply play the move bishop to d6, and black is having a very pleasant position. So this was the sixth variation. So now let's move on to the seventh variation. So now coming on to the seventh variation, here white plays the move knight to f3. We reply with knight f6, bishop d3. We reply with c5, takes, bishop takes, short castle, bishop to g5. And remember guys, the moment white plays the move bishop to g5 immediately, we simply play the move h6, take the bishop back, followed by g5. Bishop g3, and now we have knight e4, and the idea is to play the move f5, and black is very comfortable and even healthier. And like it looks like black have overextended the structure on the king side, but there is no harm in it. Black is very comfortable. And don't get worried after playing g5. There's no sacrifices coming in. Like for example, after knight takes, pawn takes, bishop takes, we can play the move simply queen d6, and after queen f3, we can even move the knight and we are simply healthier. Like there is no way white can attack you, and it's a very healthy position for black. So this was the 7th variation. So now let's move on to the 8th variation. Coming on to the 8th variation, here white plays the move knight f3. We play knight f6, bishop d3, c5. Pawn takes, bishop takes, short castle, and here we have knight to c3. After knight c3, you can see in the previous version, white played the move bishop g5. So here we are simply going to stop it by playing h6, stopping bishop to g5. As after knight c3, our e5 pawn, d5 pawn is already protected, so there is no harm in playing the move h6. So after h6, white plays the move h3, stopping our bishop g4, knight to c6, a3, a6, bishop f4, rook e8, simply developing. So rook e1, bishop to e6. You can also trade off the rooks and then play bishop e6, but playing bishop e6 first is also no harm. Queen to d2, rook to c8. And after playing queen d2, don't get afraid that there might be any sacrifices. You must remember, guys, like whenever you are having the move bishop f8 in the bag, there is no way white can make any sacrifice. Like after bishop takes, pawn takes, queen takes, as long as you have bishop f8, there is no way white can do any harm in your to your king. So basically, after rook c8, we play the move rook. White plays the move rook d1, b5, bishop g3. The idea is very keen to play the move bishop h4, pinning up the knight. So we simply play the move knight h5, hit the bishop, and after bishop h2, we can simply pull our knight back, and it's a fine position for black. It's an equal position. So this was the 8th variation. So now let's move on to the 9th variation. Coming on to the 9th variation, we have knight f3, knight f6, bishop d3, c5, takes, short castle, knight c3, h6, h3, knight c6, a3, a6, bishop f4, rook e8. We have already discussed this. Queen d2, rook c8, rook d1, b5. And here, what if white simply jumps in by playing the move knight to5? In the previous version, white played the move bishop g3. So after knight e5, we're simply going to trade off the knight, pull our knight back to d7, and hit the bishop. White have to prevent the bishop, or we would love to capture the bishop and remove white's bishop pair. Bishop f4, and here comes the move queen to f6. And after playing queen f6, black is very comfortable, and the basic idea of bishop f4 was to give sacrifice on h6. As for example, if I make a random move like rook a8, after takes, white is having some issues with black is having some issues with bishop h7, queen h7 incoming, as there is no knight on f6 or f8 to guard it. So that's the reason we play the move queen f6. We protect the pawn on h6, and we also develop our queen, and black is very comfortable. So this was the 9th variation. So now let's move on to the 10th variation. So now coming on to the 10th variation, white plays the move knight f3. We have knight f6. We have the same variation. Short castle, knight c3, h6, h3, knight c6. We have the same variation on the board, but the major difference here is after knight d7, at the place of playing bishop f4, what if white plays the move bishop to g3? After bishop g3, we can simply continue with knight to b6, as now there are no sacrifices on h6. So after knight to b6, our idea is to maybe to play the move b4, or even put the knight to c4, which looks the most ideal square for the knight. And black is very comfortable in the position, and there is no harm. And black is actually trying to generate his own play. So this was the 10th variation. So now let's move on to the 11th variation. Coming on to the 11th variation, White plays knight f3, knight f6, bishop d3, c5, c3. And here c3 is a new move. And after c3, we are having option to take or to. I would like to recommend pawn push. And after c4, we do not really get afraid of pushing up the pawn. Bishop c2, bishop to d6, queen to e2 check. Queen e2 check is a kind of a main move, and after queen e2 check, we can simply play the move queen e7, and the endgame is all right for black. Takes, king takes, short castle, rook e8, followed by king f8, and black is having no real harm. Black is comfortable in this position. And then you can continue the position as you are having a small advantage that you are having more space on the queen side, which is going to be beneficial for you in the endgame. So this was the 11th variation. So now let's move on to the 12th variation. Coming on to the 12th variation, here white plays the move knight f3, knight f6, bishop d3, c5, c3. We push the pawn to c4, bishop c2, bishop d6, short castle, h3, rook to e8, and here we have the move bishop to g5. After bishop g5, we basically white is basically pinning up on move. And there is many viewers will think that why aren't we playing the move h6, stopping bishop from coming to g5? We can play h6, but I'm not sure that after knight e5, after knight e5, we are happy in this particular position as f4 is also coming. So that is the very reason we stop first knight e5, we allow bishop g5, but there is no harm. h6, bishop h4, knight c6, knight d2, bishop d7 simply developing. The pin is annoying, but white can't really put more pressure on the f6 knight. Rook e1, and here we play the move g5. The main reason of playing g5 in this particular move is given because if I play something, for example, if white plays the move h3 and then we play the move g5, it's not really working because after knight g5, pawn takes, bishop g5, the queen is coming to f3 and can build a huge amount of pressure. Like for example, if you play the move, for example, bishop f8, here queen f3, bishop g7, and here white is having enough counter play, and this position is no harm for white. But the main reason of first after rook e1, the reason now playing g5 here is if white goes for sacrificing now, we first having the intermediate rook e1 check, queen e1 takes, and you will notice how the queen is on e1, and after queen e1, we can simply play the move queen e7, and we can basically, after moving up here, we have already removed the pin, and black is already better and winning the game. So that is the reason. After rook e1, that is the only reason we then play the move g5. Bishop g3, we trade off the bishop, queen to b6, put the pressure on the b2 pawn, rook b1, and here we play the move g4. Simply hitting the knight and the pawn. Pawn takes, we first trade off the rook, and then we play the move rook e8. Not so soon capturing the pawn, queen to c1, and now capturing the g4 pawn. And here comes the move knight into c4, a very nice intermediate move by white. Sacrificing a piece, but now playing the move queen into h6, hitting the knight. And here what we do here is, we can't do much, but we simply take on f3, and here queen into f6, knight takes pawn. It looks a bit more complicated now, but you must take the pawn, or else if you try to play something else like pulling the bishop back, it is not a good idea. And after queen g5 check, the bishop is still hanging. So you can't really protect the bishop. So you simply take on d4, queen trade, and after takes, rook e2, the position is equalish. After takes, and black is hitting the pawn, and black's rook is more active compared to white. So basically, it is a fine position for black. So this was the 12th variation. So now let's move on to the 13th variation. So now coming on to the 13th variation, white plays the move knight f3. We play knight f6, bishop d3, c5, c3, c4, bishop c2, bishop d6, short castle, h3, rook e8, bishop g5, h6, bishop h4, We play knight to c6, simply developing knight d2, bishop d7, again simply developing rook b1, now simply defending the pawn, or even the idea could be to play the move b3. We play the move b5, rook e1, we simply have a rook trade, queen e7, and after queen f1, if white would trade the queen, we would be happy to play it. We can simply take with the bishop or with the knight, it doesn't really matter. But after queen f1, the idea is to play the move rook e1. We play the move bishop f4, a very strong move, making a square for the queen to d6. Rook e1, queen d6, and here the pin is gone, and now we are asking to question to white, what is your idea, as we are going to play the move g5. So this is a very good position for black. So this was the 13th variation. So now let's move on to the 14th variation. So now coming on to the 14th variation, here white plays the move knight f3, knight f6. We have the same position, I would say, short castle. And here white plays the move knight to e5 at the place of playing the move h3, knight e5. And after knight e5, we play the move knight c6, simply hitting the knight. White protects it by playing f4. Queen c7, simply developing the queen and also putting more pressure. Knight d2, knight e7. We simply move the knight to e7, queen f3, and now we try to expand in the queen side. The knight on e5 looks dangerous, but it isn't dangerous as it does not attack anything. We play b5, g4. White is trying to attack on the king side, but we do not get afraid. We play on the queen side, a5, g5, knight e8, rook f2, and we play the move g6. And we are basically making a square for our bishop and the knight. So queen g2, we play the move king h8. Basically the queen, there might be some tricks after playing f5. So we are basically removing the king from this queen's pin. We play the move king h8, knight f7, and now finally we open up the position by playing the move f7. We couldn't done this thing before because there might be a sacrifice and the king was on g8. So now f6 is a good move, knight e3. If it takes, we can simply take with the knight, and black is extremely fun. And now f4 pawn is a bit weak. And we can continue with bishop f5. So here white plays the move knight e3. Taking on knight doesn't really help anything because of it takes. Our bishop is also even trapped. So we first play the move bishop e6 first, and now after bishop d2, we finally take on e5. Takes, rook takes, queen takes. Bishop takes, queen f8 check, knight g8 takes, rook d8, and now our idea is to play the move knight g7, knight e7, and basically after knight g7, the queen have to go back, and we can play knight g7, put a knight to f5, and black is very comfortable. But this variation is extremely sharp, and white must know what to do, or else white is going to be big trouble. So yeah, it was a very sharp variation. I would particularly recommend you to look forward to this particular variation and like just see this particular variation one or two times more. So this was the 14th variation. So now let's move on to the 15th variation. So now coming on to the 15th variation, here we have knight f3, knight f6, bishop d3, c5. And here white basically plays the move bishop to b5 check, but not in one go. White have wasted a move. We play the move knight c6, short castle, bishop e7, takes. We take on c5. We do not really get afraid of this rook e1 check, but because after rook e1 check, we can simply continue with bishop e6, and there is no harm for black. So bishop g5, short castle, bishop takes, and queen into pawn. White is claiming that he's a pawn up, but we capture this pawn as well. Queen takes bishop, queen takes rook. Bishop to d3, the idea is to give up, sacrifice the bishop on h7 and capture the rook. But we have to capture the pawn, or else knight c3 and the queen is really trapped, kind of trapped. For example, if I make a move like a6, knight c3, queen b2, rook b1, and the queen is trapped. Because the d3 bishop protects the c2 pawn. That's the reason we have to capture the pawn. Bishop into takes, f6, and the idea of playing f6 was to play the move queen g8, and the position is very clear. It's an equal position. Our idea is to play the move bishop to g4, make room for the rook to come on d8, and the position is very equalish. So this was the 15th variation. So now let's move on to the 16th variation. Coming on to 16th variation, white plays the move knight f3, knight f6, bishop d3, c5, bishop b5 check, knight c6, short castle, bishop e7 takes, bishop g5, short castle, knight c3. Not capturing the knight but developing the piece. We simply play bishop e6, queen d3, rook c8, rook d1, h6, g5. And here we have knight b4. We do not really get afraid of playing these setups because nothing is happening. Knight b4 hitting the queen goes back, we play the move knight e4, getting even a more tempo. And after knight e4, it's an excellent position for black. If white, like we are hitting the queen, we are hitting the knight, we are hitting the bishop. If he takes, then we can take, and this position is already very well comfortable for black. So like many things are happening. So this was the 16th variation. So now let's move on to the 17th variation. Coming on to the 17th variation, white plays the move knight f3, knight f6. We have the same variation actually. There is no much change. But the major change here after queen d3, we have this position after g5. You must remember this h6 g5 thing, or else you are going to lose this central pawn. You must kick the bishop away, knight b4, and here white plays the move queen to e2, not playing the move queen to d2. After queen e2, we want to put our rook to e8 to attack the queen, but we can't because the bishop is currently protecting the e8 square. So we first hit the bishop by playing the move a6, bishop goes back, and now rook e8, and this position is very good for black. There is nothing black happening, and black is very comfortable. So this was the 17th variation. So now let's move on to the 18th variation. So now coming on to the 18th variation, we again have the same variation. Like there are many variations in this particular line. Rook c8, h6, g5, knight b4, a6. We first hit the bishop as I told you. Bishop a4 now. And now again currently also controlling the e8 square. We now even play the move b5, rook e8, and yeah, that's it. We hit the queen. So this was the 18th variation. So now let's move on to the 19th variation. So now coming on to the 19th variation, we again have the same variation. Short castle, bishop e6, rook c8, h6, take here, knight b4, queen e2, a6, and here, for what if white plays the move a3, hitting our knight. We simply capture the bishop. We do not get afraid. Takes, bishop takes. Bishop to e5, trying to centralize the bishop. But here, what we do here is, we do not really have any time to waste. We simply take over here. We develop our knight on e4 with tempo. Knight bishop here. Bishop to g4, simply pinning up the knight. We do not have any time to waste. The queen takes pawn, rook takes pawn, queen takes b7, takes, followed by knight to d2, hitting the rook and the pawn, and the position is even slightly better for black. So this was the 19th variation. So now let's move on to the 20th variation. Coming on to the 20th variation, here white plays knight f3, knight f6. We again have the same variation. Bishop e6, rook c8, h6, g5, knight b4, queen e2, a6, a3. We take on b4, b5, takes, bishop to e5. We take on c3. The idea is to basically develop our knight to e4, hitting the bishop. Bishop onto d4, trying to keep the good bishop. Bishop g4 now hitting the knight. Queen takes, rook takes pawn, h3, takes. We can't really play knight to d2 in this variation because white haven't captured the b2 pawn, b7 pawn yet. So here queen d3 is simply winning. So you must remember, you must now play the move knight f6 simply back, and the position is fine. After bishop c3, it looks like the rook is trapped after queen b3 or even queen d3. So you can simply takes, queen c8, and black is having enough counterplay to capture on h3, followed by knight h5, knight f4, and black is like it's an equal position, but black is having a very good attacking chances. So this was the 20th variation. So now let's move on to the 21st variation. Coming to the 21st variation, we have the same variation. Bishop g5, short castle, bishop e6, rook c8, rook d1, h6, g5. Knight b4, queen e2, a6, a3. We take here. Bishop takes pawn. Bishop takes knight. We do not have any time to waste. Knight e4 coming with a tempo, hitting the bishop. White have to preserve the bishop, or else black would love to capture the bishop. Bishop d4, bishop g4, pinning up the knight. Queen takes pawn, rook takes pawn. h3 takes knight f6. Queen takes pawn, queen to d7. And here after queen d7, black is hitting the queen and the pawn. So white is kind of forced to trade up the queen and takes bishop c3. We play the move knight b6. There is no queen, so our rook is technically not trapped. And after knight b6, we take the pawn. We can even play the move knight a4, capturing the bishop, and we have a equal end game. But good part here is our pawn structure is better than this pawn structure. So this was the 21st variation. So now let's move on to the 22nd variation. Coming on to the 22nd variation, here white plays the move knight f3, knight f6. And here after c5, white does not give a check, but he simply castles. After simply castle, we simply play the move c4. Rook e1 check. We play the move bishop e7, bishop f1, short castle. And here white tries to play b3. Because whenever you are having some structure like this, white will always try to play a move like b3, try to hit this structure. We do not really get afraid. We simply take on b3 and we play the move knight to c6, knight to e5, knight to e4. Knight takes, pawn takes, bishop to a3, bishop takes, rook takes, queen f6, and the position is very comfortable for black, I would say already. f3 because the f2 is hanging, so knight g5, bishop f5 simply developing, knight e6, h5 now playing a bit like alpha 0, rook a1, h4 takes check, giving a pawn sacrifice for after h3, g3, knight g5, hitting the f3 pawn, queen c3, defending the pawn, rook e8, and you can see how black is the one in the driver's seat. All his pieces are active compared to black's passive pieces. So it is a very good, very good position. And like there are multiple threats like c5 in the air with knight into f3 coming up. So you must taken care of. So this was the 22nd variation. So now let's move on to the 23rd variation. So finally we have only two variations left in our book. Here we have e4, e6, d4, d5. And what if white plays the move bishop to d3? Not captured yet. After bishop d3, we can simply play the move c5. And the moment white goes knight f3, we can simply take on e4, takes, knight f6. And basically the bishop no longer have the f3 square for the bishop. And it's a good position for black. After bishop takes, we can simply capture on d4 and black is very healthy. So this was the 23rd variation. So now let's move on to the 24th variation, our last variation of the series. And finally coming to the last variation, white plays the move e4, e6, d4, d5, bishop d3, a sideline. We play the move c5. Pawn takes, and the position we have already transposed into bishop d3 variation, you will remember. And after knight f3, we have knight f6, pawn takes, bishop takes. So there is nothing to worry about. Everything is fine. The French defense exchange variation, you can absolutely play it well. So there is nothing to worry about. You just need to think of this, like after bishop d3, you can play the move c5. After takes, there is nothing to worry about. After knight f3, you can simply play knight f6, and takes, you have the same position. So these were the 24 critical variations. I hope that you guys must have liked it. If you did, then make sure to like the video, guys, and make sure to share this video with everyone who are seeking to learn how to play against the French defense exchange variation with the black pieces. And yeah, if you're new to our channel, then make sure to subscribe to our channel. It is free for you guys, but it helps us to motivate a lot. So I'm going to see you soon. So till then, stay tuned and keep watching One Shot Chess.